copy the Anthem, part 2. Let's continue from where we stopped in the last class. Disconsolate, so he stopped his unavailing racket. Would never a policeman lay hands on him? In his fancy, the island seemed an unattainable Arcadia. He buttoned his thin coat against the chilling wind. In a cigar store, he saw a well-dressed man lighting a cigar at the swinging light. He had set his silk umbrella by the door on entering. So he stepped inside, grabbed the umbrella, and sauntered off with it slowly. The man at the cigar light followed hastily. "My umbrella," he said sternly. "Oh, is it?" sneered Soapy, adding insult to petty larceny. "Well, why don't you call a policeman? I took it, your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There stands one on the corner." The umbrella owner slowed his steps. Soapy did likewise, with the premonition that luck would again run against him. The policeman eyed at the two curiously. "Of course," said the umbrella man. "Well, you know how these mistakes occur if it's your umbrella. I hope you'll excuse me. I picked it up this morning in a restaurant. If you recognize it as yours, why, I hope you will." "Of course it's mine," said Soapy savagely. The ex-umbrella man retreated. The police hurried to assist a tall blonde in an opera cloak across the street in front of a streetcar that was approaching 2 blocks away. Soapy walked eastward through a street damaged by improvements. He hurled the umbrella angrily into an excavation. He muttered against the men who wear helmets and carry clubs. Because he wanted to fall into their clutches, they seemed to regard him as a king who could do nothing wrong. Let's go through this event now and see. So disconsolate, that means he had no consolation. There was no hope. He was totally in despair. So he stopped his unavailing racket noise. So he was shouting and all that. He stopped that. It was unavailing. Unavailing means of no use. Would never a policeman lay hands on him, catch him? Would no policeman catch him? In his fancy, in his imagination, the island, that is a prison, seemed an unattainable Arcadia. Arcadia in a way is a sort of beautiful place, very beautiful, comfortable, good climate, very attractive, so that Arcadia, unattainable. He cannot go there, he cannot reach there, he cannot get there. That is to attain something, to get something. So the prison seemed to him something which he could get to. He buttoned his thin coat against the chilling wind. So being the beginning of winter, he felt cold and buttoned his thin coat. In a cigar store, he saw a well-dressed man lighting a cigar at the swinging light. So that's the light meant for people to light their cigarettes or cigars. He had set his silk umbrella by the door on entering. So he had put his silk umbrella, maybe quite expensive, at the door. So he stepped inside, grabbed the umbrella, and sauntered off with it slowly. Sauntered off, walked in a very leisurely, cool manner, not running away with the umbrella, but walking coolly with it. He wanted to get caught, that's why. The man at the cigar light followed hastily. So the man followed him, trying to catch up with him to get his umbrella back. "My umbrella," he said sternly. Soapy. "Oh, is it?" sneered Soapy. To sneer means to talk in a very insulting way, to making someone feel very small. That is to sneer. So sneered Soapy, adding insult to petty larceny. So the insult was in the way he spoke to that man. "Oh, is it?" Okay, insulting that man, so adding insult to petty larceny. Larceny means theft. Stealing something small is petty. So petty larceny means small theft. Okay, so not a very big theft, but a small theft. So adding insult to petty larceny. That's how O. Henry describes his behavior and action. Well, why don't you call a policeman? I took it, your umbrella. Why don't you call a cop? There stands one on the corner. So Soapy wants him to call the policeman to arrest him. The umbrella owner slowed his steps, but he also slowed down. Soapy did likewise. Soapy also slowed down then, with the premonition that luck would again run against him. So a feeling of what's going to happen, a premonition is a feeling of something that's going to happen. So a feeling that again he will not get caught. The policeman eyed the two curiously. Of course, said the umbrella man, well, you know how these mistakes occur if it's your umbrella. So, you know how by mistake we take someone else's things. So if it's yours, I'm sorry for the mistake. You know how these mistakes occur if it's your umbrella. I hope you'll excuse me. So the umbrella man is now asking Soapy to excuse him, saying that it could be your umbrella. Then he gives a reason. I picked it up this morning in a restaurant. So he saw it in a restaurant, it was raining, he picked it up and walked with it. So if it's yours, if you recognize it as yours, why I hope you will, and he will say forgive me or whatever, but before he could complete that sentence, Soapy says, of course it's mine. Soapy said savagely, angrily. Now why was Soapy angry? Was it because it was his own umbrella? But he was angry because he was not getting arrested. This man wasn't going to call a policeman. He rather said, oh, it's yours, sorry, take it. The ex-umbrella man retreated. Why ex-umbrella? Because formerly the umbrella was with that man. So that's why the ex-umbrella man retreated. The policeman who was around hurried to assist a tall blonde in an opera cloak. That's good clothes, very formal clothes. Blonde, a person with light hair, light yellow hair, is blonde. To help the blonde and a blonde in an opera cloak across the street in front of a streetcar that was approaching 2 blocks away. So a streetcar was coming along, so the policeman helped the blonde to cross the road. Soapy walked eastward through a street damaged by improvements. Look at the words again here. So he walked along a street which was damaged by improvements. Usually improvements are made to make a street better. But of course, O. Henry says damaged by improvements, because before making the improvements, you have to break some part of the road and then repair it or then make it proper again. So that's the word he used, damaged by improvements. He hurled the umbrella angrily into an excavation. Excavation, a place where something is dug out and there's a pit formed there. So that's an excavation. He muttered against the men who wear helmets and carry clubs. Whom is he describing again, O. Henry? Policemen. They wear a helmet and carry clubs, what you call a baton, or in our country, a lathi. So you see the different words the different words O. Henry uses to describe policemen. First, with brass buttons here, with helmets, who wear helmets and carry clubs. Because he wanted to fall into their clutches, they seemed to regard him as a king who could do nothing wrong. He wanted them to catch him, but they looked at him and just felt that he could never do anything wrong. At length, Soapy reached one of the avenues to the east, where the glitter and turmoil was but faint. So as he walked along, he reached a part of the road or a part of the area where it was rather quiet. There was not many shops, so that's not much glitter. And the turmoil, the noise, all the noises together, confused noise, it's a turmoil. It was all faint, so it became soft because it was now far away. He dragged himself toward Madison Square. That's another area of New York. For the homing instinct survives even when the home is a park bench. So he had no home. The park bench on which he slept in the night, that was his home. So all animals, all birds, instinctively when evening comes, they fly or they go towards their home, their nest or their cave or whatever. So too, Soapy instinctively started moving back towards the park where his bench, where he slept. See how O. Henry has described Sophie's condition. But on an unusually quiet corner, Sophie came to a standstill. So on a certain very quiet corner, Sophie suddenly stood still. Here was an old church, quaint and rambling and gaping. Okay. So an old church with sloping roofs. Gable means it has sloping roofs with the wall forming a triangle with the end of the roofs, both sides of the roofs, and the wall. So gable, quaint, very attractive. Sometimes old buildings in their old way style of architecture are very attractive. So quaint here means attractive, usually used for old things. Usually attractive old things. Through one violet stained window, a soft light glowed. Violet, you have these glasses, they are stained glasses with different colors or different scenes depicted in stained glass. So there was a violet colored window there with soft light because the window was closed. So the light that was coming up wasn't very bright. It was a dull, soft light. Where no doubt the organist loitered over the keys, making sure of his mastery of the coming Sabbath anthem. For there drifted out to Sophie's ears sweet music that caught and held him transfixed against the convolutions of the iron fence. Let's look at this parallel. Let's go on to the next verse. The moon was above, full and radiant. Vehicles and pedestrians were few. Sparrows twittered sleepily in the eaves, for a little while. The scene might have been a country churchyard. And the anthem that the organist played cemented Sophie to the iron fence. For he had known it well in the days when his life contained such things as mothers and roses and ambitions and friends and immaculate thoughts and collars. Let's look at these two parallels. So he came to a quiet corner, not much traffic, not much noise, where there was an old church, very quaint and attractive, and through one stained glass there was a soft light coming. And there, the organist, the person who plays the organ, his fingers loitered over the keys. That means went over and over the keys, making sure of his mastery of the coming Sabbath anthem. So the organist was practicing, playing the hymns that he was going to play, practicing them, and therefore his hands were going over and over, loitering over the keys. So he was practicing his pieces for coming Sabbath. The Sabbath is usually Saturday or Sunday, depending on which denomination one belongs. So he was practicing for that and making sure that he could play those hymns well. For there drifted out to Sophie's ears sweet music. So the music that was coming through the window or through the church was very sweet. Okay, it was sweet. To Sophie's ears, it was sweet music that caught him, so that music held him there. Transfixed him again means caught him and wouldn't let him move. To be transfixed means to be stuck to something. Either sometimes a spear transfixes a person to the wall. It goes through and through and sticks him there, or pins him there. So the way Sophie was in a way transfixed to that fence, listening to the sound of that music. Against the convolutions of the iron fence. Very often fences have nice designs, especially on the upper part of the fence, especially of a church, to make it attractive and not pointed so that it hurts the fans, but gentle with curves and this and that. So those are the convolutions, a design made in iron fences. The moon was above, full and radiant, bright. Vehicles and pedestrians were few. Sparrows twittered sleepily in the eaves. So the eaves is the space between the roof and the rafters. The rafters are the wooden sort of pieces of wood that support the roof. So those long pieces of wood, the rafters, between them, there's some space, and that's where the sparrows normally build their nest. And so they were twittering in the rafters, slowly falling asleep. So beginning to sleep. Twittered sleepily in the eaves. The eaves is that space between the roof and the rafters. For a little while, there's a printing error, there should be for a little while, the scene might have been a country churchyard, like in the countryside churchyard. It gave that impression, therefore very rural, rustic. So a very attractive sort of atmosphere. And the anthem that the organist played cemented Soapy to the iron fence. Cemented fixed him. Cement is used to fix tiles or slabs to a roof or a wall or the floor. So like that music fixed him to the fence. For he had known it well. So Soapy knew that he was practicing. He had known it well when, in the days when his life contained such things as mothers. That means when he was at home, he had a mother to look after him, and roses on special occasions, ambitions, what he wanted to be, and friends, and immaculate thoughts and collars. His thoughts were always good, simple, pure, like his clothes. His mother was there to wash his clothes. So he was a schoolboy, maybe, simple, with immaculate thoughts. His clothes washed regularly by his parents, so he was clean, collars clean, roses, mother. So a schoolboy in his days when he was happy with friends. Now he was alone in the world. So this anthem took him to those days when he knew this particular anthem. The conjunction with Soapy's receptive state of mind and the influences about the old church brought a sudden and wonderful change in his soul. He viewed with rising horror the pit into which he had tumbled, the degraded days, unworthy desires, dead hopes, wrecked faculties, and base motives that made up his existence. This, in a way, this para is an answer, or sort of just the opposite of the previous para, where his life was made of the simple good things. Here he describes what his life is made of. But his mind was receptive. That music softened his mind to realize where he was. So receptive. And the influence of that old church brought therefore a change, and he began to see what he was formerly and what he is today. So he viewed with rising horror, with fear, with horror, the pit into which he had tumbled. Where he had come down, he had fallen with this pit. What kind of a pit? The pit with degraded days, poor, useless, good for nothing days, unworthy desires, not good desires, bad desires, dead hopes, he had no more hopes, wrecked faculties, all the powers that he has being destroyed, the ability to hear or to speak, all the faculties that he had being destroyed, and his motives are very base, very cheap, very low. And also in a moment his heart responded thrillingly, his mind responded, now his heart responded thrillingly to this strange mood. A strong impulse moved him to battle with his desperate fact, to make him realize where he was and to fight against this bad situation. He would pull himself out of this mire, bring himself out of the state in which he was. Mire is sticky, wet, loose mud. When one puts one foot into it, it's difficult to remove it. And so that's mire, a place where it's difficult to walk, slushy, mucky. So that is the mire in which he was, a low place, difficult to get out of. And he would make a man of himself again. Now he was just a vagabond moving aimlessly. So now he would be a man with some goal, with some idea, some ambition. So this is what that music did to him. It changed him from what he was to what he now wanted to become again. There was time, he was young yet. He would resurrect his old eager ambitions, bring them back to life, to resurrect, to bring them back to life. So he would all those old eager ambitions of his and pursue them without faltering, without hesitating, without falling back again, not getting fed up and easily giving up, but to keep on steadily, strength and strength. Those solemn but sweet organ notes had set up a revolution in him, so that music brought about this change from what he was to what he wanted to be now again. And he decided that he would do it without slipping back again, faltering. Tomorrow he would go into the roaring downtown district and find work. So tomorrow itself he would do that. He would go and look for work. A fur importer had once offered him a place as driver. So he remembered someone who had offered him a place to drive, a job of driving. he would be somebody in the world. So he said he would at least take that job, earn some money, and be someone. He would not just be a vagabond, but he would be a driver employed with someone. He would. He was going on thinking. And suddenly what happened? Soapy felt a hand laid on an arm. So he felt a hand being laid on his arm. He looked quickly around into the impassive face of a policeman. Impassive, showing no feeling. A blank face, impassive, without any feelings, without any emotions. "What are you doing here?" asked the officer. "Nothing," said Soapy. "Then come along," said the policeman. So he was doing nothing there, listening, and the policeman sees him there standing doing nothing. So he asks him, "What's he doing?" "Nothing." "Then come with me." So 3 months on the island, said the magistrate in the police court the next morning. So the policeman took him, and the next morning he was sentenced to go to prison on the island. So they used to name the prison Island. So he was sent back to the prison to keep himself warm in winter. But now, when he decided to change, at that moment precisely, he could not change. He was sent back to his old life. 3 months on the prison doing nothing, but getting fed and being warm. So we see the irony of O. Henry's story. Slowly, a decadent man, a person gone down, coming up with that music, how that music affects his life, those notes affect his mind, and he decides to come out, he decides to change. And just when he makes that decision, fate takes him back to what he was. Beautiful story. Let's now go through the exercises. Discuss with your partner and find out the different ways in which Soapy tried to get arrested. We've seen about 5 ways in which Soapy tried to get arrested. Here we have a few. You could mention a few of them here. Then describe the atmosphere when Soapy reached near the church. There again, it was described beautifully just on the previous page, page 31, the 4th and 5th paragraph, or the last 2 paragraphs before the end, above the end. Okay, shows so clearly the atmosphere of the church as well as the atmosphere of the surrounding, the sky, the night sky, and all that, the birds. So describe all that, the atmosphere there. And the third, you have to match the incidents given in column A with the consequence in column B. That is easy to match. You read the passage each time and you have no difficulty. With all these questions, you won't have difficulty. So too with the next 2. Give reasons and complete the following. Soapy had confidence in himself. Why? Remember, because from above his trousers upwards, no one would think that he was not well dressed. Then why did the head waiter behave that way? Why did the cop not arrest Soapy? And also the next one again, why was he not arrested for shouting? Then pick up lines from the text to show the following things. So all these questions you can answer by looking at the text. It's a beautiful text, and as you read it again and again, you will discover the words O. Henry has used in this beautiful story. Here we have the phrase, he would make a man of himself again. What does this word man mean in this context of the story? What was Soapy before? As a child, he was a simple child, then he became a vagabond. So now when he wants to become a man, what does it mean? Write a little what you think about that change he wanted to bring about. Then look at, again, compare the two, Soapy's earlier life with his present life. You can fill that box there. And what does he decide to do after hearing the notes on the organ? Again, there are different words that O. Henry uses to describe the present. I mentioned them to you. You can write them down there. Also words that O. Henry has used to describe Soapy's degraded state. Then what's the meaning of the word anthem in the context of this story? What does an anthem normally mean when we talk about a national anthem or the anthem of any club or any organization? So here, what does anthem mean? Try and find that out. Then you have some grammar questions after this. Next time I will answer them for you.